And arguably the strongest New Testament church in the Bible is the Philippian church born out of that adversity. It was the only church that stayed connected to Paul all the way till his death. You know, the tragedy is most Christians look at politics and say, oh, it's just dirty. Well, so is the department store and everywhere else you go if Christians don't clean them up. Anything the church pulls out of soon becomes filthy and corrupt. Politics are dirty to the degree to which infidels are running it. But I'll tell you this, while a lot of people are cursing the darkness, hundreds of Christians literally took control of writing a platform of one of the two parties this particular election cycle. If you read the party platform, I don't know what the party's going to do, but if you read the party platform, Pastor, you can preach a whole series of sermons from it. Because Christians engaged. But I'll tell you what, that nucleus of Christians can't change America. It's going to take millions of Christians voting their Christian convictions. And let me just clear something up. For all the Christians say, I'm not going to vote this time because all I'd be doing is choosing the lesser of two evils. Would you name me one election when you didn't do that? As far as I can tell, Jesus has never been on the ballot. It's just a matter of degrees. And what you cannot do is say, I will not vote. That is a sin. I know people take offense at that. But you know, I'm so thick-skinned I don't even care anymore. But here's the reason I say that. He that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is a sin. God said, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar, and unto God the things that are God's. In America, you've been bequeathed a franchise, citizenship. You have the privilege of electing your rulers. And for you not to exercise that privilege is a sin that God's going to take. If we continue that vein, He's going to take that freedom away from us. And once freedom's lost, you don't get it back in generations. Ronald Reagan, in his farewell address to this country a great year, said, America is a shining city set upon a hill. America is a shining city set upon a hill. But you know what? He didn't think that up. He was quoting Reverend John Winthrop, one of the early pastors during the founding era of this country. You know why John Winthrop said that? He said this country is a shining city because for the first time a nation was built upon the principles of freedom, self-government, which only can exist as long as you govern yourself. That you restrain your own evil. Because sin nature, unrestrained, can only be controlled by judgment and death. Our founding fathers put together a unique form of government. It became known as American exceptionalism. Why do they say American exceptionalism? Because America is the only nation in the earth that you can come from any other nation, and if you ascribe to certain principles and an oath of allegiance, you can become an American. Now, you can't move to Spain and become a Spaniard, and you can't go to England and become an Englishman. You're born with those certain distinctions. But America was the melting pot. It was built not upon a race and not upon any certain person, but built upon a set of ideals, chief of which was God is Lord of all. And from all over this world, people have come. The special character of the United States as a uniquely free nation based upon democratic ideals and personal liberty. What makes America special? Well, let's think about it. First, there's the system of checks and balances. You know where they got that idea? By the way, all of this I was going to read it from the book because I've captured all of these historically in the book. Enough is enough. But Romans 23, what does that verse say? For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Amen? You know what our founders knew? They knew that man was inherently sinful. So you better not put too much power in any one man, In fact, you better have some continuous accountability. And so they devised three branches of government, one to check the other, because anyone unaccountable would become a tyrant. They gave us three branches of government. Now, how did they arrive at the three branches of government? Isaiah 33:22. Founders are reading their Bible. Many of them were theologians. The 9 of the first 10 universities founded in this country were designed and built to train preachers. Yale, Harvard, Princeton, right on down the list. They were built to train preachers. These theologically trained men who built this country said, we're going to have three equal branches of government. Isaiah 33:22 says, for the Lord is our judge, judiciary. The Lord is our lawgiver. Well, how about that? Let's have a legislative branch. The Lord is our king. We'll have an executive branch. But here's the rest of the verse. God will save us. Not the king, not the lawgivers, not the judiciary. That system of government gave us the most freedom and the most prosperity of any government in the history of mankind until the judges began acting without being accountable. When's the last time you heard of a judge being impeached for their behavior? The last one I'm aware of went right back to his congressional district in Florida and ran for Congress and is now a sitting congressman. Impeached for wrongdoing as a federal judge. One or two impeachment of judges would do a lot for this country. 4 levels of government. Where did that idea come from? Exodus 18. Now, interestingly enough, listen carefully, church. You know, I went to Stephen F. Austin State University, and I married an East Texas family, and learned real quickly how much racism ran through East Texas. And so this will be offensive to somebody, no doubt. But you know, if you do a study, you'll find out that Moses' wife was a black woman. And her father-in-law came along, Jethro. He saw Moses trying to teach all of these, or I should say, administer justice to 2 million wandering Jews, kind of like Baptists. They were always bickering. And so every afternoon he'd sit down for hours and adjudicate the problems. Jethro looked at him and said, Moses, this is going to kill you if you keep it up. So he gave him some advice. He said, look out among the people. He said, moreover, thou shalt provide out of the people able men. Make note of that, able men. Men of capacity, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place them over as rulers of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Our founders looked at that truth and said, well, that makes perfect sense. Depending upon a man's capabilities, let's place some as rulers at the federal level, administrating over thousands. Men with lesser capabilities are rising through the ranks. Let's place them over hundreds, state legislatures. But below them we'll have county government and then local municipalities. 4 levels of government built upon the precept of the words of Jethro to Moses. And there you have your federal, state, county, and local government in principle in God's Word. Beloved, I don't think we have any comprehension of what a special nation this is. How about our economic system? In 2 Thessalonians 3:10 it says, if a man does not work, what? Neither shall he eat. We just went through a primary season in which one of the two parties came a whisper of naming a socialist as the presidential candidate. Now let me tell you about socialism. One of the last things Jesus taught before he went to the cross is recorded in the 25th chapter of Matthew. And it's the story of the steward. He said, a man who was very wealthy called in 3 of his servants. He gave one man 5 talents, another man 2 talents, and another man 1 talent. Then he went away for a season. When he returned, he summoned the man with 5 talents, and what did he have? 10 talents. He said, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Luke says he appointed him as a ruler. Then the man who had 2 talents came to report. How many did he have? 4 talents. He gave him the same word of praise, and he made him a ruler over cities. Then came in the man who only had 1. Now, mind you, he didn't spend it on gambling or women or riotous living. He did what some would say was very commendable. He saved. He gave back his 1 talent. Some of the most scathing remarks in all the New Testament were reserved for that servant. His sin was doing nothing. Now, in today's economic world, here's what people would have done. Bless your heart, you only have 1, and that guy's got 10. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm a good guy. I'm going to take 8 of that man's talents, and I'm going to give you 1 of them, and I'm going to keep 7 of them. And then he would have looked at the man with now had 4 talents. He said, because I'm such a good man, I'm going to take the 2 talents from him, so he'll be just like you, 2 apiece. Now look, you've got 2, he's got 2, and you've got 2, and I've got 8. And after about 2 seasons of that, you know what all 3 of those men would do? Nothing. And that's why communism, socialism has never succeeded after the death of its tyrants. And yet we're wrecking right now the greatest economic system in the history of the planet. We are so ignorant about what we have and what we have had that we've almost, this election cycle, turned to a socialist. What about tax exemption for churches? Well, I know where that came from. The IRS. Well, that's not true. It comes from Ezra chapter 7. Let me read you the verse. I know you can't see it. Also, we certify you that touching any of the priests and Levites, singers or ministers of the house of God, it shall not be lawful to impose toll, tribute, or custom upon them. Do you know what God said in the Old Testament? He said, all of my servants and the house and ministry of the temple is tax exempt. Our founder said, you know, the freest way to have a church, rather than the government subsidizing like they do in the Church of England and the Church of France and the Roman Catholic Church or whatever, instead of the subsidy of churches, why don't we just let people congregate around the pastor that they are most familiar with and acclimate and identify best in terms of their doctrine, and then whatever they give to subsidize that particular brand, that will be tax exempt. They will pay taxes on it. And that way we separate from the church and let the church be free. By the way, we'll still let those preachers come and preach to us because they're teaching morality and we need it. The separation of church and state had purely to keep the government out of the church, not so that the government could silence the church. Along comes the IRS and suddenly begins a formal manner of tax deductions and a whole set of codes, thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of regulations, and tucked away in one of them is that you can deduct your taxes if you get a 501c3. Let me give you a little education. Churches don't have to have a 501c3 to be tax exempt. They're tax exempt because the Bible gave them tax exemption and our founders understood it. Did you know that Jerry Falwell, who built one of the great churches in America, Thomas Road, more than $1 billion over time contributed through it to ministries around the world? Did you know till this present day they've never had a 501c3, and yet every dollar given is tax exempt? Now, when the government gives you a piece of paper, it always comes with a tie. And so in 1954, Lyndon Baines Johnson, running for the Senate, a group in Dallas, the Hunt brothers, had a 501c3 tax-exempt organization, and they started using their money to tell the whole world about the corruption of Lyndon Baines Johnson. So you know what LBJ did? He called together his cronies in Congress in the dead of night without one word of documentation in any records. He added a rider to a commerce bill that passed. And for the first time, it was illegal to take tax-exempt funds given to a 501c3 organization and use it for political speech. Now, he didn't intend that to apply to churches, but churches by the thousands now have their 501c3s. Along comes the IRS with the able help of Americans United for Separation of Church and State, a branch of the ACLU, and suddenly churches everywhere are being threatened with the loss of their tax exemption if they say one thing political. By the way, you know how many churches have lost their tax exemption in the history of the United States of America? Anybody like to venture a guess? One. In 1996, Prairie Creek Church in New York took a front page ad out in the paper, USA Today, and said, if you vote for Bill Clinton, you're going to die and go to hell. That's my paraphrase. And you know what? They jerked away their tax exemption, and then they litigated it and gave it back. This is a threat to silence the church. And a lot of the silence comes from laymen who read misinformation, who get on their preacher if he says anything political. Folks, do you understand that we're losing something very special right now? The only hope for America is for the church to again be the church. Now, I know I've been a long time, so I'm going to finish. Take your Bible out and turn to 2 Chronicles 7:14, unless you know it by heart. I wish you do. I would hope you do. In 2 Chronicles 7:14, quote it with me. If my people are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I'll hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and I'll heal the land. Here's how you heal a nation. First, you've got to work through the people God has. And that's me and you. Not if the Republicans hear my voice.